What up, guys and girls? It's Bobby,
And Sean,
and we're back, baby.
we're back. Happy Easter. He is risen. He has risen. What's the appropriate greeting?
I believe he has risen is the correct reading.
Isn't this song though he is risen?
I suppose there is a song that he is risen, but I think the saying on Easter is he has risen because he's back again.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. So in that light, then, if we're continuing with this religious discussion on what is a biblical podcast, um, do you reuse the same pan every single morning, and how often do you wash that pan for breakfast?
It depends on how dirty it is. So if it's like clean, like mostly clean, won't wash it, but there's a bunch of residue, I'll wash it. So for example, like yesterday I made like a sandwich and like toasted my sandwich on the pan, and then I just left it there. There was a little bit of oil, but like it wasn't dirty, so you know, I guess
Yeah, I
it's
think
your judgment.
I think I might go the whole week cooking eggs and spinach and beans and peppers all in the same pan because I feel like it really seals in the flavor. I don't think there's any scientific background that's really delved into that subject. But if anyone's listening is like top chef type individual, let me know because I've been doing this for years and I've not gotten sick yet. So I feel like that's part of like building up the immunity is just reusing really dirty shit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a rationale to quote unquote sealing in the flavor. Maybe it's just this, sign of laziness and not wanting to wash it. But I
That's
could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I'm also environmentally friendly and that's why and anyone that's ever been in my platoon, I was always the dirty kid.
Yeah, I can
Uh
imagine.
like I oh, someone's at the house. Um yeah, my garage band just quit on me.
God damn it.
Oh wait, no, it's still going. Never mind. It's still going.
All right, never mind.
This is a
Disregard.
live stream. This is why people know us, because we're technologically savvy. Yeah, I forgot what we were talking about. Oh yeah, I'm dirty. I wouldn't shower, but every few days, my first deployment, it got so bad, my platoon sergeant just took all my shit and put it outside the tent. Was like, "You smell. You need a bathe." I was like, "All right, that's probably a sign." But I thought we're in war torn Afghanistan. I thought that's what you did. You were just dirty, but apparently not.
Yeah, I've always taken personal hygiene pretty seriously, Sean. I was actually just got back from San Antonio this last week. I went to this course called C4, which stands for Combat Casualty Care Course. It was
Oh,
a huge waste
I
of
thought it
time.
was a really good pre-workout. That used to be
Oh,
like the go-to, the blue raspberry.
yeah, C4 is still decent. It's just like it's essentially like an energy drink now. I don't even consider it pre-workout. But they do have like non-pre-workout energy drinks that are pretty good that I drink pretty regularly. But they also have like the C4 can pre-workout that's also pretty good too. So
Okay, I know you're about to get off on what was going down in San Antonio, but on that tangent, is it economical to purchase all those cans of pre-workout or just get the flavor packs that you can just mix in? Like, like here's a candle, but imagine this was a
in the
can of
powder,
pre-workout. Yeah, the
yeah, the
powder form.
powder, not the packs.
Yeah, whenever I see someone with like a can of pre-workout, uh, Kieran included, I'm always like kind of disturbed. Like, why would you spend $1.50, 250, 350 on what is essentially like pure caffeine and sugar when you could get the same thing in powder?
So I will say that the C4 pre-workouts actually taste pretty good. And it's also convenient too. You go to like, to shop at Class Six, you go to a gas station, you just buy like a can of pre-workout and you don't have to mix it. Granted, it is, certainly more expensive, but it's not significantly more expensive if you like do the math. So if you do the pre-workout, it's like it's like, 30 servings for like $40 or
Yeah.
some of them. So and then the can of pre-workout's like $2. So certainly it's more expensive, but like it's not significantly more so.
Have you ever tried Bang energy drinks?
No, they're a little too strong for me. I like to have
Dude,
like about 200.
I had like a third of one of those things and I felt like my neck was gonna explode. Like I felt like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall, like on the sands of
Yeah, on
Mars,
Mars. Yeah.
and just like my face was, I was gonna rip it off just out of, pure convenience so that I wasn't in pain any longer. Like it wasn't, I in the whole day I was just like anxious and jittery. Like it was the worst pre-workout I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah, there's certainly like a sweet spot for like pre-workout and like caffeine and stuff. I found that for me, it's about like 200 milligrams of caffeine for pre-workout. I don't know how some people can take like, 500, 600 milligrams of caffeine, which is like insane in my mind.
Yeah, that, I mean, but you've also been a big proponent of just doing straight like black coffee before working out too. I'm not sure if you're still on that train, but I know for a long time I would be on just regular coffee before I'd work out.
Yeah, I think that, just a little bit of caffeine before working out's not, it's actually like probably good. There's some good like science that says that like, caffeine can help increase like your mental alertness, leading to better workouts, et cetera, et cetera. But mostly I like, it's like a ritual for me for the pre-workout to like get my mind ready, and signals to the
Uh,
body it's time to work out.
yeah. Like speaking of Afghanistan being stinky on a mission, I used to bring my pre-workout with me on mission, knowing that, okay, if we get back, at 1800, okay, I've got to do my post-mission debrief. Okay, I need to take it 5 minutes before we re-enter the base so
Hmm.
that I know exactly by the time I'm ready to work out, my pre-workout, so I'm
Time it.
not like delaying my night any longer. That was that was pro. And then, something would always happen and I would just waste that pre-workout. And that would be the biggest shame I think of the war on terror was not being able to plan my missions out to every single lift that I wanted.
That's truly the biggest struggle of deployment. It's not the same thing, or it's like timing the pre-workout or like having to work out around patrols is always a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I mean, like John Kirby said that he didn't see the withdrawal being chaotic from Afghanistan. And I'd have to agree because compared to not being able to time up my workouts to that withdrawal, I would say my workouts were what I really remember Afghanistan for. It's nothing else that the administration could have done except be like, hey, can you get your shit together? Al Qaeda, Taliban, like he needs to get into squat today. And, you know, his pre-workout's
TikTok,
going to kick in 35 minutes.
TikTok, TikTok.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking San Antonio.
Oh yes,
Um,
yes, yes, yes.
they have a Six Flags down there, don't they?
Do they? I know that's SeaWorld. I don't know about Six Flags.
San Antonio, that's the place with the Alamo, right?
Yeah,
And the Riverwalk.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that place sucks. I've been there, so I do know what you were talking about. Continue.
Anyways, I was at C4, which is Combat Casualty Care Course, which was kind of a huge waste of time. Basically, it's like a course for like the DoD's medical providers. So you have like, doctors, you have dentists, you've got some nurses. Who else do we have? Optometrists that would go to this course. But as far as like doctors go, you have the wide gamut of doctors and like surgeons like myself, and then like you have internal medicine doctors, you have psychiatrists there. And basically all the course does is it like teaches you TCCC or like the tactical combat casualty care, like the March algorithm.
Yes.
Does that ring any bells?
March. No, it's April, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, but essentially like, teaches you like some trauma support and then like TCCC. Anyways, it was a huge waste of time and you know, I just really but it was like kind of fun because you get to like hang out with like a bunch of people from all different walks of life. So I like made friends with some dentists and stuff. But overall, the course was a huge waste of time. We spent like 3 days doing TCCC. And if you've ever taken TCCC like in the army, it's like a 3 hour like refresher, like once a
Yeah.
quarter.
Yeah,
I don't know
and then
how they
sometimes they make you go through the little like uh it's like a shoot house, but instead they're just filling it with smoke and screaming at you
yeah,
and shooting
exactly.
paintballs. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that
Uh,
like 3 times for 3 days, and I wanted at the end of the day, I was at the end of the course, I was just like, I don't care anymore. I know how to do this. Stop wasting my time. But it's like kind of funny because I'm like, contrast my reaction to this training and then contrast like the normal doctor's reaction to training who haven't like done army stuff or like been like in those stressful situations. And it's like kind of interesting that people um still have that like stress response and like freak out when someone's like yelling at them, there's noise, they can't see and stuff. It was very interesting that like for like me, and I'm sure like other people that have done army stuff, it's actually not like very stressful. And then actually when the cadre was like, it seemed like you were just walking through it and didn't take it seriously. And I was like, I think I was taking it seriously. I just didn't manifest my emotions by like getting stressed, you know?
Yeah, I'm not a fucking child.
Yeah. So that was kind of interesting to compare and contrast like my reaction and like the other people's reactions to it.
I'm like really I'm like questioning where the army puts bases. Like why Houston? I mean, not Houston, Jesus, I'm an idiot. Why San Antonio? Like, what about that region or that city did the army look back, in history and go, we should set something up here. Like this is the spot. Like Fort Polk, I understand. It's like the armpit of America. It's really challenging terrain. It's really hot most of the year. And you get a whole bunch of suffering out in order to execute basic missions. What about San Antonio stood out to you as like Army did a good job?
The location was, I know there's a lot of land out in San Antonio that they can train on, but I mean, the big reason I think is because they have the hospital there. They have Brooke Army Medical Center. So BAMC is there, and that's like the Army's premier hospital or the DoD's premier hospital. It's the only like level one trauma hospital in the DoD.
But like, why
Um,
there though? Like we have all these bases around the country, and you look like on the East Coast, the majority of the 18th Airborne Corps is over there. California has Irwin, which is a training center, and then the rest of the units are up in the Pacific Northwest. It seems like, but for a single division or two down in Texas, there's nothing else that's really like, I know it's in the middle of the country, but I would have felt like the Army's premier medical installation should have been, put to one of the major coastlines.
yeah, I'm sure there's a reason why, San Antonio and BAMC was kind of selected it to become like the Army's premier hospital. But I also think has to do with kind of the development of the institution. I actually don't know when BAMC was created, but if you imagine like all the other army posts are probably around like kind of large metropolitan areas like Walter Reed, it's so much competition from like DC, all the DC
Yeah.
hospitals. So you have a Georgetown, MedStar, all the other hospitals in DC, like Fairfax, Nova, whatever, and Nova. Like every other hospital has like pretty significant competition from other larger hospitals that's been around for a while. So I'm not sure how BAMC got that like kind of like niche development to become like the regional trauma center.
Yeah. I mean, San Antonio is like the Alamo is unimpressive. I get Texans are really proud of it. I've never been proud of losing, but I'm not a Texan. Um, but even within Texas, between Dallas, Austin, Houston, I would take those three cities over San Antonio like any day of the week. And especially if you were to go to Austin and put this training center there, then you're really close to Fort Hood or whatever Fort Hood got renamed to. Which looking back on it, if you're there for a mechanized tank command, like I think that's a really phenomenal installation to do that at. In hindsight, it pains me to say that, but I feel like that would have been a much better place for the Army to put it. But and we're talking about being in a competitive market where you now have UT Austin. I think you have Texas State that's right there. It just seems San Antonio, like you get the Final Four there every couple of years. I don't know though, like what else really would be the big draw. I guess we should go ask the Secretary of Defense that. That seems like something they'd answer for us.
Yeah, I think probably like 20, 30 years ago or something, they like created this because I remember when I rotated there, they talked about it, but they have like this like agreement between like all the EMS in the county, and then they're like the tertiary referral center in the county for all the trauma. So I think that plays into it, but like certainly, there's a lot of like factors that shape the decision to make BAMC like the premier hospital in the DoD, which I don't necessarily think it is a premier system either, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay, well, we're talking about posts. I think a good segue would be, and now we can't speak for the enlisted side of the house, but for the officer side of the house, I would definitely say that wherever your BOLIC is, and then oftentimes your first duty station for lieutenants dictates your personality, and that wherever you are, all the lieutenants end up being the exact same person by the time they graduate BOLIC and go to their first duty station. What do you think about that?
I would probably agree with you. I think, but like just posting wise, there's certainly like a certain type of person goes to brag, a certain type of person goes to like, 10th Mountain, certain type of person goes to first Cav.
Good looking ones. I totally get it. This I agree with. But I was thinking back to it. A couple of my friends that went down to Benning before me, they didn't change, but I saw a bunch of my peers get to iBolic, and all of a sudden they started listening to country music like 24/7. And they were definitely not the type to listen to country music. They got really big into Auburn or Alabama sports, or they started acting like Southern Charm characters on the hit Bravo TV show and going up to Atlanta and spending hundreds of dollars on dressing like finance bros, boat shoes. Like it just seemed like whatever personality that they had coming into iBolic, uh, it was completely ripped away for this like quasi frat boy Alabama image that they were going for. And it was like really weird because everyone was blasting country music. I'm not a fan at all of country music, probably for that reason. And so it was always just weird. Like I wondered how many other posts dictated the kind of personality the lieutenant had, because these same lieutenants would then go to Fort Lewis and they'd be like really big into the flannel and coffee scene and craft beer scene, and they'd be like really outdoorsy with the flat brim caps, or they'd go down to Hood and they would just kind of go off the deep end on being super country, wearing cowboy boots when they're from Pennsylvania, or getting like a giant lifted truck when the only thing they're going to put in the back of that is like a six pack. I think lieutenants, wherever you go to iBolic, stay true to yourself. Don't pick up any of the local, I don't know, personalities, because you're not going to stick with it. It's going to look silly on you.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to kind of pick up some like, mannerisms and new things, try and fit in. I certainly have cowboy boots from public days that I
I
still
have
wear.
cowboy boots from being at Fort Hood. I've worn them one time and they were a huge waste of money. I mean, I remember putting them on going, I'm at Fort Hood. Like, I need to be like the locals. It's like if you go get stationed in Germany, you should learn some German. I thought, oh, I'm in Texas. I should wear cowboy boots. To date, honestly, probably one of the dumbest purchases I've ever made, because one, cowboy boots are not functional. They're
Oh,
not
come on.
comfortable.
Come on.
They look stupid. Get a pair of boots and
No.
lace them up. There's nothing about cowboy boots and like fitting them over your foot to midway up your calf that a pair of Merrells can't do. In fact, you can do more in Merrells than you can in cowboy boots. The only thing that you're wearing cowboy boots for is to say, hey, I live in a certain part of the country, and that part of the
I
country values really stupid footwear.
I don't agree with that statement whatsoever. I think cowboy boots can be pretty functional if you get like work boots. If you're just getting like, dress cowboy boots, that's certainly different.
Okay, but in what work setting are cowboy boots better than again a pair of like Merrill Annexes are my go-to boot? What world would you wear cowboy boots over a pair of Annexes?
If you're working on a farm and then you have to walk and poop every day, the work boots are waterproof. I actually am big
My
on getting a
Merrills are
pair of,
waterproof.
but it's like not the same waterproof.
It's not
It's
the
not.
same.
Merrells are
Okay.
like they've got like the Gore-Tex put into it. They're like breathable and whatnot, but like shit can still get into it. Like it still gets wet. With the cowboy
So you
boots,
so the only setting in which cowboy boots work is if you are working on a farm and every other step that you take, you are just wading through piles of shit.
for
So
the
if your
most part.
farm does not have shit, Are Merrell's now the superior choice?
perhaps. But I will say
Weird.
I do want to get a pair of cowboy boots for the hospital because they're pretty good hospital shoes because they're waterproof and they cover your ankles so that if something splashes on you, it doesn't get in your socks. That's the worst feeling having wet socks in the hospital.
Oh yeah, I would have thought you would have just gone barefoot and like really just been
Soaked it
like,
all in.
your blood is my blood. If you've got to let it go, I will be there for you. I will be your sponge. I am your doctor. But
But I
that's
will
not
say
you.
that cowboy boots are not they're not that bad. I actually like cowboy boots. I should wear mine more often. I've had the same pair of cowboy boots now for like 15 years and still wear them.
Well, damn, Buckaroo, I had no idea I was with a bona
A true
fide cowboy,
a true Southern man.
a true Southerner. Oh, my goodness. Well, as we continue this talk, because what I was thinking also is I bought cowboy boots in Texas. When I moved to Carson, I bought a pair of uh what's the flip flop brand that like the toeless you know what I'm talking about?
Birkenstocks,
No, I have Berkeys. I love Berkeys. I have several pairs of Berkeys. No,
rainbows,
no, all the crunchy vanilla kids,
chacos.
Chacos. Bought a pair of Chacos, uh, thinking I'd be going on like, almost quasi barefoot hikes through the mountains. That didn't end up happening. I'm sounding like someone who took a lot of the personalities from the locations that I went to. That's not the case. I just a couple times I bought really questionable footwear. Okay. But like you go to Colorado, everyone gets into spending a ton of money on uh, all-terrain skis and skins for their skis, and they go backpack skiing and they get into like climbing. Like, is that really controlling your personality based on where you get stationed, or is that doing stuff to entertain yourself while you're in these unique duty stations?
I think it was more so the latter where you're doing something to entertain yourself in the duty stations. Because like, coming to Washington, I didn't like because I didn't really hike that much, do that much outdoor stuff. Like in Jersey, like there's no, mountains in Jersey to go hiking in. But coming out here, there's way more trails when we're hiking things. So we certainly got more into that. Got more into skiing, got more into outdoor stuff. So certainly I think it's not necessarily shifting your personality, but trying new things wherever you're located.
That's something I wish I had done way more of when I was at Fort Hood. The only thing I did while I was there, I went to Austin a handful of times. I went to line dancing, square dancing. I can't remember what it's called, where I wore
Line
the cowboy
dancing.
boots.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that was about it. But one of the things that I really regret about my first duty stations in general is my personality, I think, was so dictated by like being the most fit person in the battalion. Like all around fitness, either being like near a 12 flat 2 mile, but also being able to outlift almost like the majority of the soldiers and like maintaining that functional fitness that like I really limited the amount of fun that I had. My weekends were like wake up, have a very, very small breakfast, get to the gym by 9 or 10, work out for 2+ hours, and then the afternoon was spent really just doing nothing but recovering, and then grocery shopping, meal prepping on Sunday, working out again. And like I didn't do much. Like it was kind of I feel like a loser looking back on it, and not either like, developing a friend group there or visiting stuff in and around Austin, Texas, but for a couple gyms.
Yeah, there's certainly like the trap I think that people can fall into certainly is like being so focused on a certain goal that you kind of neglect a lot of things. Um, and I think it sounds like you might have some regret and remorse about not doing the things that you previously just were making fun of people for doing.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I mean, but I still make fun of you, like line dancing dumb. Like,
That's not dumb. One thing is not dumb. I actually went to a cowboy bar last night. One of my buddies is having had a quote unquote bachelor party last night. And for anyone in Tacoma or JBLM, they know about Steel Creek. I went to Steel Creek last night. Did not wear my cowboy boots though, because I didn't know that was part of the itinerary.
oh, well, you should have just worn them out anyway because they're functional. And
I should
walking
have.
downtown Seattle, you're probably stepping in a whole bunch of needles and vomit and human feces. If it's anything like San Francisco, you should have worn them.
I should have. I should. That's why I said I should probably wear them more often because they are pretty comfortable shoes that I enjoy wearing. But anyways,
Sometimes you change my mind on this podcast. This might be one of those. I might have to give cowboy boots another chance.
dude, I think it's like especially in the hospital setting, I think it's very unique, and people can be like, "Oh, he's the guy that wears cowboy boots. He's the surgeon that wears cowboy boots," and it's like
I think I could do that in law too, because
you could for sure.
whenever if if and when I get before a jury and I'm presenting, I think I want to do like the foghorn leghorn, like southern Mississippi draw. And I think a pair of cowboy boots really just kind of build on that to be like, I somehow just trust this man. Like he just seems like, he makes nice grits in the morning. And look at those cowboy boots. They're just so dapper. Like I bet he has a pair of cowboy boots for the yard work and be like, yes, ma'am, I do. But let's get back to my plaintiff. He is unequivocally been injured by your party. And just get on that. That's exactly. Don't hire me if that's what you want. I will not do that for you.
Dude, that'd be legit. Do lawyers have like a persona they put on in the courtroom?
Oh yeah.
Like a dot persona is like kind
Yeah,
of like Better
even
Call Saul-y.
yeah, and even in depositions and engaging with other lawyers, you'll find a lot of times that they put on a show because the whole big thing that a lawyer has to be is this zealous advocate, and like zealous is the key word. And so people flip a switch where you might have a good conversation with them in an informal setting where you're trying to come to some negotiation between the parties, to kind of resolve it. So you don't want to drag it on because it's going to be expensive for both parties. Litigation is so expensive. And you'll build a good rapport with them. But as soon as like their client is present, if they are the type where like maybe they're coming from a really small law firm, or they're coming from like a gigantic law firm, it's weird to see them like switch so quickly. And they go to this really mean, really abrasive personality type where you're going, we were getting along amicably.
Right.
Like now we're coming to a point where litigation is our only recourse. And it's like really frustrating because I think a lot of times lawyers get a bad rap because they appear to want to lead things on because they're billing it, and you are just a litigious person. But at the end of the day, a lot of this could be, settled through a mediation or an arbiter if you just have sensible heads on both sides. So it's like really frustrating sometimes to see attorneys be so rude to one another, where it's just like, if the roles were reversed, we would be a zealous advocate for, the party you're representing, and vice versa. So like, let's not treat each other like we want to rip each other's heads off. Otherwise, let's just go settle it that way. Let's just put on some chainmail and go down to an open field with an axe and a shield.
Funny story. Last night, I actually was hanging out with a couple of JAG officers. One of whom, do you know the Tiger Mom thing?
Oh,
Ever heard of Tiger
like
Mom?
what a tiger. Yes.
The book Tiger Mom?
Yes. Okay.
I
Yes.
bet
The book.
the daughter of the Tiger Mom.
Oh, what is the daughter do now? Is she a jag?
Yeah, so she went to Harvard for undergrad, and that's how she knows his friend group. It's because this one dude in our program, it was his bachelor party. He went to Harvard for undergrad, then went to Michigan for med school, but he did ROTC with her at Harvard. Then she went to Yale Law
Oh my
and,
God.
and then joined the army.
Why?
Yeah, pretty
I mean,
ridiculous.
like, good for you, but for people that don't know, there are a couple of law schools that you go to
Yeah,
that just by their name alone opens up a ton of doors. And especially if you want to work like big law, like in one of the cities around the country, like New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, and going to a big school like Yale, Chicago, Columbia, NYU,
the top 10 or
University of
whatever.
Chicago. Yeah,
Yeah,
it affords you an opportunity where you can interview anywhere in the country and you automatically have the name recognition. Even if you're at the bottom third of that class, they still consider that better than the top grad at like a mid-tier law school. Whereas if you go to a good law school that's like a top 50, it's probably still going to be pretty regional where you get hired and where you end up working. But if you go to Yale, like most of the Supreme Court justices, I think either went to Harvard or Yale.
right.
they start identifying individuals really early on at law school as being like, this could be a future, district or circuit court judge, or this could be a Supreme Court justice. And a lot of the justices were also clerks at the Supreme Court. So it's
Right.
kind of
So they kind
like,
of build the, yeah.
yeah. So if you go to Yale and you decide to join the Army, that is like, oh my God, that I can't, I'm trying to think what a proper comparison would be. What's like one of the best med schools in the country?
Probably like Harvard or Michigan,
Okay, so it's like doing that too and then going into the Army. Like,
which people do.
yeah, it just blows my mind that people, that's pretty selfless.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool move to go and pass up on an opportunity to handle some like really big cases at any law firm in the country that you would choose to deal with soldiers getting DUIs. But
Yeah, she had some pretty good stories about like some of the shit that soldiers do, which made me really appreciate the fact that I don't have soldiers anymore, to have to deal with any of these things. But she's a prosecutor here. But it's very interesting to talk to her. But yeah, I've come to really appreciate that it seems like that law has a much more emphasis on prestige than medicine, it seems like. It seems like the medicine, like you can there's still like a bit of like ivory tower like prestige involved in medicine, but I don't think it's nearly to the extent that you see in like law school.
yeah, law school, especially when it comes time between your first and your second year when you start doing on-campus interviews, my experience was if you're essentially not the top 10 to 20% of your class, the law school looks at you like, you know, feed yourself, figure out where you're going to work. We're going to give you and provide the doorway on your journey. But if you're really one of the premier candidates out of the law school, you get a lot of emphasis placed on you. And there's a lot of focus on making sure that you are directed to representing the school because, you talk about the prestige, all the law schools want to be able to put on, that one page pamphlet. 99% of our graduates pass the bar. 85% are working big law in like New York City, Chicago, average of a 168 on the LSAT. Like those all build into this idea that, this law school isn't just an ivory tower, it is the ivory tower that everyone competes to get into. And one of the things that I found too in going to law school, especially in New York City, everyone put an emphasis. I remember in high school and getting into like, oh, I have to get into UVA. I have to get into Penn. I have to get into William and Mary. Half the people that you go to school with in law school didn't go to any of those schools. They went to any undergrad and they just excelled there. And
Right.
then that translated to them excelling in law school. So like I think we're seeing that probably too now is the prestige in undergrad is depreciating every single year as we put more emphasis on a master's program or on a doctorate program. But yeah, law school is definitely one of those places that builds this fake society of, you are amazing because you have a 3.7 GPA. Everyone else is just a peasant to you.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because I feel like medicine probably used to be like that before, but nowadays it is definitely shifted towards not as prestigious based or prestige based. Because like you can like there's plenty of examples of like doctors who come from like not your ivory tower schools that are still doing like really good. So I think in medicine specifically, I think that there's certainly a leveling on the board in terms of like where you go doesn't necessarily dictate your career.
The only thing that I've seen that somewhat dictates your very early career in law school is the schools that are up there, your T14, your T50s, usually have a higher bar passage rate than your other programs. And I'm not sure if that is some way indicative of the quality of student or if it's the teaching that goes on there. I know a lot of schools that are highly ranked have a lot of professors that have clerked, that have extensive backgrounds at a Harvard, a Yale, other schools up in Boston, and these schools that are on their way up will take those individuals and give them tenure in order to say, hey, we've got, this many Harvard grads or Yale grads that are professors here. I think most of my professors were Yale, Harvard, and had also clerked at some level, and then write extensively, so that you are, not only are you competing on a curve for the best grades and against presumably more talented students on average. By the time then you go and you take the bar, because you've been held to a higher standard, you end up doing better on the bar, I think, is the theory. And so that's where I think when people get into this whole prestige mode of law school, it's like, okay, it may be a fake label that we're putting on this place, but at the end of the day, I'm going to have probably a better chance of passing the bar, getting licensed, and going on to actually practice law if I go here versus a mid-tier school.
Yeah, I think it's more a reflection of like you have a more talented pool of applicants to draw from, and I think it's like a self-fulfilling cycle. Because
Yeah.
certainly I think the same definitely applies in medicine, where like the big med schools are also associated with like big university healthcare like hospitals. And by that nature, the big like tower hospitals also have like uh doctors who are really big into research and then generate, income for the hospital slash the med school. And that having that research then like permeates down to like the med school, where then students are able to like get involved in research programs and then develop their own portfolios, then becoming one of these like you identify like the ones that clerk or like write extensively, or they fall in that similar pathway of like academic medicine. That's kind of the term for like your academic doctors that do a bunch of research that also teach.
I think one of the things I realized quickly at law school, and I only hung out with a small group at Fordham, and all of them had like one thing in common, and that was prior life experience, whether they worked for 2 to 5 years. Well, that was it. That's what distinguished us. Most of the people that came straight from undergrad did not have an appreciation, I thought, for the a different viewpoint. They've been in a very, again, not to say that one side of the political aisle is more dominant on undergraduate campuses or not, but we know it is. So you have a lot of individuals that come into law school that are coming from very, very liberal backgrounds, and law is inherently conservative. There's a lot of precedent, there's a lot of strict interpretation, and when you're looking at laws that were written in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, regardless of maybe some of the cases that came out during that period, you are still going to have a tighter and more narrow interpretation of how that law impacts and how we interpret it today. And people could not handle it. And people got really sensitive to the fact that you were having mature conversations. And so it was really kind of disconcerting to go, okay, like these are the future lawyers of America. These are the future leaders of the Juris Doctor programs, potentially at other universities that they go on and teach. And they were having mental breakdowns interpreting basic law. And it was very almost like, I can see how authoritarians come to power, because they're fearful of how a different side of the world thinks. And so you need to shut it down, and shut it down hard, because it hurts your feelings. And so that was the one thing that with the younger generation, I almost wish, and I don't know how it was in medicine, but people should not have had the opportunity to go straight from undergrad to law school. I think there needs to be like a 2-year moratorium on applications until you've done something with your life to say, okay, like you can now appreciate the impact this law has on a population, instead of just sitting there from your very narrow perception of the world and thinking everyone has to look at it like you.
Yeah, I would say that there's a fairly similar phenomenon in medicine too. Definitely you can tell like who went straight from undergrad to med school versus like people who took like, a break in between. I don't know if that's a good idea though, to like have a moratorium on applications, because I think especially in medicine, a lot of the people that don't go straight from undergrad to med school typically go get like a master's or go to a research lab for a couple of years to like build that portfolio for applications. So if you think about it that way, like even though they aren't applying directly to med school and having some quote unquote life experience, they're still very much so in that academic machine of medicine where they're, getting a master's or working in research. So it's not necessarily like equating, it's not the same thing as like, joining the army for like doing the army thing for a couple of years and then doing med school. So I don't know if that's like a a great solution to that. But certainly I agree that, the people that had life experiences beforehand were typically better at being doctors for sure.
And I think too, when you look at the medical practice, you might say we don't want a ton of life experience because to get into med school and then to be successful at med school, it is so heavily weighted on the academia, your math, your sciences, maybe not so much like the interpersonal type stuff you would get from law school where it's kind of just interpretive. It's like, no, like this person's leg got chopped off. Like there's only really a couple things that you need to do immediately to solve this problem. Maybe, yeah, moratorium doesn't make sense because you just want to stay in that like way of thinking where you're constantly in this analytical, scientific, medical realm. But for law school, there's just so much that other than your writing skills that, and where they need to be coming into law school and then by the time you graduate, there's just too many different practice areas and there are too many different classes that you'll be exposed to that you will not have a true appreciation for what they're trying to get out of it if you've never really come close to experiencing any of it in your life. You've got kids in property class that don't know really what a lease is because they're if you're going to law school, I would say 99% of them are coming from a pretty wealthy background where their parents wrote the check for everything in their life because it's so expensive to now get a law degree. So you probably didn't sign your lease. Your parents probably did. Your parents are probably paying for most of the things. So your contract, understanding how contracts are enforced is not something that you inherently know, although it's intuitive. But I think there are a lot of experiences that I'd say normal people have that don't go the K through JD program, are going to come into law school and be able to sit there and go, okay, like I understand the opposite side instead of being like, no, like we shouldn't even consider that because it's violent, it's dangerous. Like the only way you interpret it is my way, and if you can't see it that way, then like we should mute your voice in class because it's dangerous.
Yeah, I wonder if a better like solution would be to do like a Teach for America type thing like that, for like some kind of like service opportunity where you get to go experience like other people's lives too.
I think that in general for graduates, it should be a thing. I think everyone in the country should do a 2-year service obligation, whether it's joining the military or going and working for the state or working on a federal program, because people don't realize how hard it is to keep up the infrastructure of the United States. People don't really know what it means to be selfless anymore. I think Americans are inherently selfish now, and expect everyone else to do the things that they complain about, and never take up that mantle that I think America was built on, and that is like hard work pays off.
So you're saying that we should have a mandatory service obligation?
Absolutely. I mean, just from a health perspective too. I mean, we talked about Physical 100 a couple of weeks ago. Um, I think Korea is a pretty fit country in comparison to the United States because they are all required to go serve. So you have to maintain some physical fitness level in order to go do that. They also have, I think, a higher patriotism. They're also, always on the verge of war with the North, but we don't have that direct threat any longer. But I think Americans need a kick in the ass to say, do something for the country. It is not just a take environment. And so you understand where your tax dollars are going, and you understand what it means to have the shoe on the other foot. It's the one thing that I'm super frustrated that for as many great things that this country provides, people don't seem to really recognize that, and it's just a complaining mindset instead of like developing solutions.
Yeah, that just harkens back to like, Starship Troopers where they have like citizenship for service.
Oh yeah,
Hell yeah.
Rico's Roughnecks.
But the book Starship Troopers is like one of my favorite books of all time. But the
I,
movie doesn't do justice.
I mean, the movie doesn't do it justice, but the movie is still great in its own right. Like that
Right.
wasn't like John Carter of Mars. The John Carter series is a phenomenal series. If you've read it, if you read it all the way through. And the book differed from the movie pretty significantly, and the movie sucked. Versus Starship Troopers, book was great. The movie was still great, even though it differed substantially from the book.
Hmm.
And was not as violent and didn't have the story with his dad, which I thought was a really important story to tell. So yeah, I think now we're talking about Starship Troopers. I got to watch that again. Oh, I watched Tetris last night. That's a phenomenal movie. On
Interest.
Yeah, it's about licensing.
Oh, yeah.
Um, really good movie. Like really good. I didn't have like high expectations because I feel like Apple Plus is 50-50 with either sucking or being pretty good.
Yeah.
It is a hands down, I think it's the best movie Apple TV has put out to date.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've been watching the Apple TV stuff recently. But Starship
I
Troopers is classic.
Yeah, Starship Troopers is really good. Okay, so we were talking about like really stupid purchases. Um Going back to that for lieutenants, what are some other things that like lieutenants purchase at their first duty station, like maybe military related, that you go, dude, why did you spend $600 on that? That is the dumbest purchase other than cowboy boots that you could have made.
I think the trap of like buying like a big truck or vehicle at your first duty station is probably not the smartest. Granted, I did buy a truck my first duty station too, so I don't have much of a leg to stand on. However,
It wasn't a Dodge Ram, so like people can't totally hate you.
but I got a pretty good deal on it. I mean, at the end of the day, it probably wasn't the best thing to do, but that's probably a trap that people fall into is like buying a really nice vehicle at the first duty station when they start making real people money or adult money, I guess.
I was thinking more of the lines of like individual plate carriers. Um,
Uh,
let's see, their own cry
Op scores,
uniforms,
yeah.
ops cores now. The one that I really dislike is, what is it? The Garmin, not the Garmin Fortrix. What's the Garmin thing that I've got it in one of my bags downstairs, but the one we had in regiment, just that green.
Yeah, like the Fortrex,
Yeah,
the GPS thing.
that was like $200, I think. I use that all the time, and the fact that like you can bump other Garmins and give them, your rally points and your objectives and pass on other critical data. But people now are like buying these like $600, $800 Garmin watches that have all these different programs. Like you're not using them to jump, you're not doing halo operations, you don't need that capability. You can get the same out of a shitty green Garmin that you can then wear on your other wrist so you can actually see what's going on. um like that was a really dumb purchase, I thought, lieutenants made. And then also the cry uniforms, I didn't understand that, like why
Or
you
pay
bought.
for
i
them.
thought i thought the issued uniforms were completely fine. Cry looks better, sure, but like if you're getting your uniform for free, why are you spending $600 on a set? Like that's dumb.
Yeah, I think, there's certainly a trap that people that fall into of like trying to look like a cool guy. Because you always know the first rule is always look cool. So
Yeah.
people definitely can fall into that trap of trying to look too cool.
Or like the plate carriers, that we had like lieutenants that bought the tiniest plate carriers. Like my tattoo on my chest is smaller than what I'd want my plate carrier to cover.
Yeah,
And you'd see guys a little bit smaller than me, but they'd have a plate carrier that wouldn't even cover this Cronus symbol. Like that
yeah,
that made no sense.
yeah. Coming now on the other side, the medical side, and seeing like kind of the trauma that you can get, having a correctly sized plate carrier does make a pretty big difference. Yeah, and a pretty big you know, marker of your mortality based on how much your plates cover.
Yeah. Or another one is like Peltors. Like I know a lot of units will issue them now, which is great. I loved my Peltors. I had a pair coming out of regiment, and then I kept them when I was at Carson. I still have them downstairs. Like I love my Peltors, and there's like a whole bunch of civilian varieties that you can purchase. But at the same time, thinking back to it, like again, the army and people were successful in the army without Peltors. Like the hand mic was just as good, and if you were a leader, you know, you could still get the radios set up so that you could hear both, and you didn't need to have these Peltors on. You didn't need to buy your own personal ops core. You wanted to look cool. Like if you want to look cool, again, go to the unit where they issue that stuff where you look cool, but do not spend $600 to $1,500 uh you know, trying to do that. It makes no sense. It's a huge money suck. Like if you're going to be successful, you're going to be successful regardless of whether you have that stuff. And if you're the only guy in your unit that's walking around with Peltors on underneath your ACH or wearing cry uniforms as a brand new butter bar or first lieutenant, like you are going to get significantly judged if you are just an awful leader. If you are not blowing everyone away, your your career is basically tanked because you're not going to get a top block.
Yeah, there's certainly like I mean, I can see both sides of it, but certainly like that's a trap that I think people can fall into is trying to look cooler than they actually are. Like, yeah, I think there's like that, that like reality versus expectation type like Venn diagram. And some guys will have that like reality doesn't align with their personal expectations.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't necessarily I think it's like it can be a little more nuanced than just like not spending money on gear too. Sometimes like gear does help, and if it does help you be a better leader, I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to like spend a little bit extra money on that stuff. Because you are at the end of the day a grown ass man or woman that can make their own decisions. But then obviously that's a trap that you can fall into when you're still young and not as experienced. So
Right.
certainly like having a little self-awareness perhaps of knowing what is probably a good idea to buy and what's not a good idea to buy can certainly pay off. And I think the vast majority of people, nobody's going out and dropping like $5,000 on like cry and like all the cry it out for their first reputation. Sometimes I think like a garment's a bad idea to like have a nice garment to have or stuff like that, or
Yeah, but
nice boots.
I think that the like the Garmin Fortrex or whatever it was a 201. Now I'm getting my Garmin's confused with like my run watch and the GPS device. But the stuff that like if I were to redo my lieutenant time, what I would want. Um, on a comfort level, I'd want hand warmers, like the football
Yeah, quarterback glove.
quarterback glove, like you just put it around your waist. That thing was phenomenal. A drop pouch, and if you're a lieutenant out there, not because you're dumping mags, because it's like the perfect size. If you have a leader's book that you made that like you laminate, you tie off, you can throw it in there. You can throw spare batteries. It's like a catch-all. Like an admin pouch was really big for me. I used like another canteen pouch for a lot of that. Um, what else? Oh, and like a good pair of boots. And like that's it. That's it for like being a leader. If you get issued Peltors, that's awesome. Learn how to use them. Like learn how to set your radios up. Uh, but like buy you don't need to buy cry. In my opinion, you don't need to buy cool guy cold weather gear. Um, you can get if you want to get like cool guy cold weather gear again, go be a cool guy or like go to REI and buy some basic stuff in black that might get away from uh maybe what the army's issued you, but you're not spending a fortune on staying warm. Um, that's stuff that I would like spend money on. Um, not that I like didn't waste money on stupid stuff, but I would definitely limit it to that.
Yeah, I would add like getting good socks would be a good thing to do,
I was
and
fine with
getting
the issued, man. Those like really cheap OD green ones, like I never had problems with them.
they just like fell apart after like 6 months of wearing them. They just like fell apart. I would just get like I would say get Darn Toughs. It's probably a good pair, like good investment for like socks. That'll last you a long time, like Darn Toughs, and then like getting good underwear or undergarments. So like you know breathable, like non shitty underwear. and like the undershirts probably not a bad idea too. As far as your kit, like you said, dumb pouch is really good. Um, having like because we had the battle belts, and I thought that was very beneficial having a battle belt. Would I get out a battle belt in the regular army? Probably not. But you can also put like a dumb pouch on your belt normally anyways. So it's not that's like not that crazy. But I probably would not get a battle belt in the regular army. And then having that admin pouch, I think is probably a good idea too.
I had mixed feelings about the belt because like a lot of times based on where it sits on your hips because you load it out, you have to connect it to your plate. And so if you were getting in an aircraft or you were in the seated position, the straps were very rigid. And so like they would interfere with you trying to sit down comfortably, or like you feel like you were pulling on your shoulders because your hips were being dragged down by the belt. You mentioned t-shirts. That's from a comfort level, I can see that. I think I loved the issue socks. I had no problem with them. The issue t-shirts I did not like. If you find like a whatever the OD green color is now t-shirt that you really really like, that's more breathable than what the army issues, I would say like go with that. But I thought we talked about this underwear. I never wore it when I was in uniform. Um, I just like it. I would chafe more if I wore it than just putting glide on and just going commando.
Yeah, I never had really had chafing issues by any means, but Brian actually turned me on to this brand Ex Officio. Have you heard of it? Ex Officio.
No.
It's they make a lot of merino like clothes. So their underwear is really good. They actually have a lot of their like hiking shirts and other things for like actual hiking. But Ex Officio makes really good underwear if anyone that's interested.
Briefs or boxers?
Boxer briefs, but they have briefs and boxers as well. But it's all like merino wool, so it's like fast drying. It doesn't smell. It's like naturally antimicrobial. Um,
Would you
so I
wear that
would.
though in a hot environment, or
Oh
would you
yeah,
go commando?
I started wearing that down in San Antonio. I was wearing the ex officio underwear like on the quote unquote field days when I was sweating.
Yeah.
And I
And you
used to
didn't
because
like
I
I never whenever I think I was an RTC when I honestly started going commando. It was just really uncomfortable because of like the boxer briefs had all shifted on you when you were kneeling, moving, walking. Like it just became like another layer to have to like try to adjust to stay comfortable. Whereas like if I just made sure that I had some like petroleum jelly or some glide on in between my thighs, like I could go for days and it was like just way more comfortable.
yeah, I think it's just like that's probably a reflection of you not having good gear, Sean, not a reflection of your large penis.
That's not at all what I was getting at. It just like even on rucks, I could not wear the Under Armour boxer briefs. Back in the day when like that was the new tech for underwear. Like I don't know. I've always been like an advocate. And I remember telling people like if you're in uniform, go commando. Like that is the most comfortable way to wear those pants to limit chafing. Um, that's weird. I thought we were on the same page with that. I didn't know you were an underwear guy in uniform.
It changed. Yeah, because I used to go commando like at Ranger School and all that stuff, but then it's actually for me now more comfortable to wear underwear, especially the ex officio underwear, which leads me to think that like maybe this entire time I just didn't experiment and find a good pair of underwear to wear underneath the
Yeah.
uniform, which I think
You
that's
know,
actually what the story is.
because I compare that kind of to running shorts. Like, I would prefer to run in like Ranger panties all day, but I legitimately have to put on so much body glide again, even though there's real no difference between that and like going commando in uniform because I it hurts. So if I don't put on body glide before a run, like I will chafe. It'll be the most uncomfortable like rash that I'll develop. But if I wear a pair of like bird dogs or Lululemon that have the built-in liner, even though I hate wearing like boxer briefs working out, I won't chafe. So it's like I don't know where that difference is. Like I would think if I was a commando in uniform, I'd be fine not, having a liner working out, but I'm the opposite. I need the liner working out.
I think it's a reflection of just like finding a good pair or what works for you. I think a lot of it, when you're like young as a lieutenant, a lot of it is like figuring out like what works for you too, with figuring out like
Well,
what does and what doesn't.
to bring it back to like the plate thing, one of the reasons that I found going commando was beneficial is because when you're in a field environment for 5 days, 10 days, 3 weeks now, what have you, it's way easier, I thought, to stay hygienic and give yourself like a field shower or wipe yourself down and not have to carry, 5, 6, 7, 8 pairs of underwear if you are, sweating in an environment like JRTC for 2 weeks straight. Um, that just seems like having to carry extra stuff and separate like really dirty clothing from mission essential stuff that you have in your bag, all the laundry that you've got to do, thereafter, where I feel like there were, especially from a male side of the house, there were, other things that you could bring to the field that would keep, below the belt clean, dry, and not like what I always figured was gross with underwear.
Well, that's why the ex officio underwear is pretty nice because it's like merino wool, so it's already like naturally kind of antimicrobic, and then it's really fast drying and like it's really sweat wicking too. So like the underwear like doesn't get smelly. You can like dry it up like overnight or something, and it dries pretty quickly. So definitely for like hiking, I wear it for hiking too now.
I'll have to look into that. I mean, technology always changes, but that's
Yeah,
nuts.
Brian actually turned me on to them like a couple years ago. But ex officio, highly
Ex
recommended.
officio.
Yeah.
We're not sponsored by them, and we sure as hell aren't sponsored by Under Armour because their boxer briefs suck.
Yeah, Under
So
Armour has certainly like not innovated nearly as much as all the other companies.
no, man, like their stuff, their cold weather, their hot weather, it's the same shirts that I remember wearing in 2007.
Yeah, in high
Like
school, yeah.
it does not feel like it has changed, not in the same way that like Patagonia or Lululemon seem to have like upped the apparel game. It seems like Under Armour is still in this weird. I don't know what Under Armour is, to be honest, anymore. Like I know they moved into shoes, but it's surely not an apparel company that like I would purchase.
Yeah, there's certainly like a lot more companies, especially like a lot of the outdoor companies have certainly done a lot more innovation in textiles
Oh,
and like
like
clothing.
Cool. I love Cool. Um, yeah, even LL Bean has like really good stuff now. If you want flannels, that is. But yeah, I can't. Oh my God, this is mind blowing. I always thought you were a commando guy.
I
Okay.
was for a long time, then like I said, started wearing the actual like good pairs of underwear, and it actually makes a pretty big difference.
Okay. Well, one place now I think that we can shift to that we will have no disagreement over. Domino's loaded tots are bad.
Never had them. Can't tell
Oh
you.
my God. I have been, I must have like a really smooth, soft brain because I was tricked into purchasing them from all the TV commercials that I've seen because the
What?
person's just like loaded tots. I'm like, I swear to God, 2 nights ago, I was like, babe, we're ordering loaded tots. I'm going to get the loaded Philly cheesesteak tots. They're probably going to be crispy. That's what the advertisement says. You can pair them with another pizza. I was like, all right, I'm going to order loaded tots. What a tremendous letdown. Like, if this is going to be a Domino's commercial, do not cast me. Like, don't come to my door in 3 weeks and go, we heard you had a bad experience with our loaded tots. How about now? And then you film me going, oh my God, these loaded tots are phenomenal. Thank you, Domino's. You've done it. Don't cast me for that. I'm going to tell you it's probably still trash. Like, they were so bad. They were soggy. They were cold. The topping, like, just sat on it like you remember those kid kitchen sets when you were like 5 or 6 where like it looked like a thing of food that you could just put on a plate and be like, look it,
Yeah.
it's like that's exactly what I thought of this
Right, right,
topping on the
right.
loaded tots. Because like Domino's, I don't like any of their food except for their cheesesteak pizza. Like it's the only pizza that I'll eat if I'm ordering Domino's. And I don't order,
What?
yeah, I don't order Domino's for anything except the Philly cheesesteak pizza,
It's
unless I can't
strange.
make that at my local pizzeria. But it's like the only time I order Domino's was for the cheesesteak pizza and for loaded tots. And now it's not for loaded tots. Do not buy into their advertisements. They are awful.
Yeah, I've come to realize that like besides from like pizza and pizza-based products, a lot of like Domino's food is actually kind of trash. Like the pasta bowls aren't very good, personally. They might be better now, but like I remember the first time eating them a couple years ago, they're terrible. Their
Yeah.
wings are not very good either. But the
No.
pizza I think is fine. And then like the cheesy bread stuff, also pretty good.
Yeah, see, I don't like their pizzas, because I feel like they're pretty. You can find them now at other actual mom and pop pizzerias that put a little bit more effort into their pies. Um, but I don't know, it was such a letdown, man. I bought into it hook, line, and sinker, and I feel like an idiot having ordered loaded tots. So like
Well, I
super
will
letdown.
say that like living in Jersey, you certainly have know, a much better pool to draw pizza from. Certainly like a lot more local, like mom and pop pizza shops. But here on the West Coast, dude, we don't get pizza unless it's from Domino's. The only other pizza that are around is like $30 for like a
A
same
large.
size for like a large. It is
What
stupid expensive.
you say that though, because where you were down in Jersey, you were still close enough to Philly in Haddonfield and Cherry Hill where you had good pizzerias. Like I've been down there. I was just down there a couple of weeks ago. There's a ton of them. Where I'm at, it's like too far away from Newark, from Jersey City, and from New York to have like really good pizza. I've tried 5 local places and to date haven't found one that if I were to rate like Joe's Pizzeria on the Lower East Side as a 10, these pizza places wouldn't make a 5.
Uh,
They're still better than Domino's, but I feel like I'm too far away from a major metropolis to hold these kind of mom and pop pizzerias accountable for not making like a truly great pie.
that's fair. Like down in South Jersey where I used to live for med school, there were like 5 or 6 pizza spots with like 10 minutes that I could go get. They're like all phenomenal. Depending
Yeah,
what
and
kind of
same with sandwiches to end with like uh we went and got sushi there. We've gotten Chinese food in Philly, and Italian food, Indian food, like all better down there. I don't have any of that stuff really
oh
here
really?
in North. No, man. Like I if I want Indian food, I will legitimately order it in Morristown, which is still 30 minutes to get to Morristown from this place, and then drive that home and warm it up because there's nothing good out here
Uh,
in Roxbury within, honest to God, like 35, 40 minutes. At that point, though, it's like it's so cold when it gets to you, like reheating it just is not the same.
yeah. Yeah, I will, I know certainly that's one thing I do miss from like Philly area, living in Philly area is the food. There's way better, for some reason, way better food down there than up here and like Seattle, like metropolis area. Seattle metro area for some reason only has like decent like, you know, American food, which is like
See,
not
that's weird because I would have thought
crazy.
that having seen a ton of Top Chef, like a lot of the chefs that do really well come from the Pacific Northwest where they have a lot of locally sourced ingredients, a lot of really great fish, a lot of unique like vegetable and leaf choices. Um,
Sure, but
I
that's
would,
like the top tier like fine dining experience. But
yeah,
like if it's like a fucking Tuesday night, I'm not trying to spend $100 for, pasta. I just want to go get some like good Italian food or good Indian food, but there's no neither of which exists out here. That's like
yeah.
reasonable price.
You know, another one that I'm frustrated with, and again, if you're tuning into Cronus Fit, we started as a biblical podcast, and we've now made our way to a foodie podcast. Um, Buffalo wings,
Uh-huh.
Wingstop overpriced,
I do
B
like Wingstop
Dubs,
though.
but they're overpriced. B Dubs, I used to love going to B Dubs, um, and then I started realizing that the B Dubs like boneless wings were like chicken nuggets, and I think they're actually being sued right now because a guy's claiming that that's exactly what they are. Uh, and like I've purchased from Costco the chicken wings to like fry myself,
Yeah.
and they come and they're like the size of your fist, and you're like,
Oh
this is
yeah, yeah.
great. And then you fry them, and I swear to God, they're like shrunken down to your pinky. I don't know what they're doing to make these things look so jacked. And then you put them in a sauna, and they come out like this. Like
It's
that's
water weight.
frustrating.
It's all water weight.
So frustrating. I just want good
Um,
food, man.
yeah, it's one thing I've definitely certainly missed. I think like South Jersey, like Philadelphia area, I think it's probably the best food that I've ever lived. If any place I've ever lived, best food.
I would say New York City, but I mean, I think
That's cheating though.
that's cheat. Oh my God, it's so cheating. If you live in New York City, which I think everyone should do once in their life, like honestly, like for 2 years, live in the city. It's a really cool experience. Um, again, don't lose yourself being there because it's really easy to be super negative because everyone there is a colossal prick. But the food scene on the Lower East Side was just tremendous. There were so many varieties of restaurants from first, second, and third generation immigrants that like you could literally go to a different country essentially every single night for weeks on end and like really expose your palate to cool and unique tastes. And then all the basic stuff that, like a macaroni and cheese. How many ways are there to make macaroni and cheese? Well, there's like a macaroni and cheese restaurant off of, is it A Avenue or something, where they have like 25 varieties. And it's like, I could have gone there every single night. Like I would have got huge, but like beyond good. And same with like the bar scene. I mean, it's like a cool place to live for a little while, but yeah, coming out to Roxbury, it's like, it's so
Yeah.
disappointing.
Although I will say the food in Seattle is pretty good. It's just the fact that it's time prohibitive for us to go up to Seattle to get food. So like we try to go up to Seattle like once every other month for like a date night or something. And that's
Yeah.
like pretty good food and stuff up in Seattle, but in Tacoma, there's not much in Tacoma. There's like a couple spots, but nothing great.
Morristown has a good variety of restaurants like downtown. They have a really nice square and they have like a restaurant row that's probably about like 400 to 500 meters long and lined on both sides with, like cool bars and restaurants. A really good pizza place in Morristown, what's it called? Mimi's or Millie's. One of them is in Savannah, is I think Millie's or Mimi's. Again, either one. They have like coal fire and wood fire
Yeah.
for their heat source, which is just a really cool way to taste your bread. But yeah, living further out west, there's not much. But it's like, it's kickstarted me wanting to make more food and and not rely, because it's, again, if you live in an area that doesn't really have good takeout food, you're going to be like way more hesitant to spend $50 on a date
Hmm.
night than just to be like, I'll spend $50 on some high-end ingredients, um like some good
Yeah,
steaks or something, because I'm not wasting my money on this stuff.
it's fair. Oh, now that I think about it, the best pizza in Tacoma is actually at a bar. It's a brewery. E9 Brewery has the best pizza in Seattle, in Tacoma. If anybody that's out here. E9
Oh,
Brewery.
and
They
if
actually
you're
have like a wood-fired pizza oven, and it's actually like really good pizza though, and like really good pizza.
best pizza in Colorado Springs was at like a high-end bakery that only sold pizza on Saturdays between like 9 a.m. to 12 at like Nightingale's, which was next to like I think it was called Lamb Bar and Grill, and then CrossFit SoCo, or
Mm.
where it used to be CrossFit SoCo before it moved. And it used to be in an old elementary school, which is how everything in Colorado Springs is, because that's trendy to take it in school and keep all the like really little kid urinals in the now big person building. That's not weird at all. Um,
Yeah, I remember working out there. It's very interesting. Worked out there with Chandler Smith. Shout out Chandler Smith.
oh yeah, is he? When are the games this year? Are they still like doing the open thing right now?
They're at the semifinals stage. So they had the open, they did the quarterfinals for like people that did well in the open, did the quarterfinals. Now that the semifinals here coming up in the next couple of weeks, where that's like the regionals or whatever, like the qualifiers now, in-person qualifiers.
I know Ricky Gerard is out, which is a bummer. I was hoping he was going to have a comeback tour, but um, yeah, I guess he did something to his elbow or his shoulder.
Yeah, he's like mountain biking, had like a mountain biking accident, and, like dislocated his shoulder.
Oof.
Sucks.
Is Tia Claire Toomey still in the running to make it to the games? Even
No,
like
she's like
having,
super pregnant right now.
yeah, but I thought she was still like scoring
Oh,
higher than the average.
I think she probably like got a semifinalist spot, but I don't know if she's actually gonna go to it. I don't know. I'm so far removed. Like I just all the stuff I see in CrossFit now is just based on social media, what I see on social media.
Yeah, I couldn't, honest to God, could not name five males that are still in CrossFit. Like I think Noah Olson is out. I think he's doing like a weird fitness journey thing. Brett Fikowski, I have no idea. We're like dating ourselves by the CrossFitters that we follow.
Yeah.
Oh well. All right. Let's wrap it up on this Easter Sunday. What do you
We
got anything else?
no, I say this is a very interesting podcast. You went from like Easter to law school slash med school to purchases in the army to now food. So very, very diverse podcast. So hopefully,
And yeah, and personalities too at different duty stations.
yeah, which I kind of grouped together. It's like the whole like buying stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, and our most important part of the podcast, which should be like, headlined is, underwear and uniform, good
Underwear
or bad.
uniforms.
Yeah.
That's the big debate. Maybe we'll
That's the big debate. I think we're still gonna come back to this because I I'm gonna have to go find an old pair of OCPs and get a workout in to test that. Although I will tell one story. The bad part if you go commando in uniform and like you are on a legitimate mission,
you blow your
um,
crotch.
yeah, and like legitimately, I've seen it multiple times where people went commando, blew their crotch out on like really sharp rock. We didn't, we're going out for, weren't planning on doing any remain over day operations, but had to, and so now like people are literally taping up their pants because their pants are blown out. Where if they had underwear on it, I mean, I don't think they really care. So maybe that's the lesson here. Army should make better stuff that doesn't blow out, and then
Uh,
my side completely wins.
yeah, I was just say like I feel like the new OCPs are probably better. I actually don't. 'Cause I'm so far removed from like the line. I actually don't know if that happens anymore. So they used to happen pretty not like relatively frequently, like blowing out your crotch in your pants. But I don't know if that's still a thing now.
Yeah, and I don't know like what size quads you had to have to do that because like the only people that I knew that blew them out were jacked.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't like the thin kid that ran a 10-minute 2 mile. Like it was the guy that was built like a gorilla.
yeah. Yeah, I wonder if that's still a thing. I only have one set of OCPs at this point, to be honest. So
Yeah. And also let us know if you think Bobby should just start walking around in cowboy boots in the hospital, or if he should walk around in 5 finger shoes. I vote the latter. I think he'd look
I've
really
seen
cool
people,
in
but
five.
I've seen people walking on five finger shoes in the hospital. It's fucking weird.
You should do that and then like, hold a pencil and act like you're going to take notes and really just give your patients a quick second thought.
No. That would be hilarious though.
One of the things I developed at medical school was learning how to write with my feet so that I could check you at the same time as I'm taking notes. You
That'd be
fucking weirdo,
interesting.
Bobby. That's you. I'm gonna start that rumor now. That's gonna go.
Cowboy boots. Boom the cowboy boots. All right.
Dr. Bobby writes with his feet.
All right. With that, we will end it now. All
All right, we'll
right.
see you guys in a couple weeks.
See you guys later. Have a good one. Peace.
Peace.